Today, I want to talk about who Maddie Lockwood really was in You Season 5 and what her experience with Joe actually says about him and his relationship with Kate. In the midst of a showdown with Reagan, Joe mistakenly abducts her twin sister Maddie in her place, caging her and hatching a plan to kill two birds with one stone, using Maddie to take out Reagan and then step into her life wearing her face. Kate catches onto Joe's antics as Maddie breaks down and recognizes her sister's distress as a wake-up call. But Joe has his claws in Maddie and manipulates her into rehabbing his image online, weaponizing the crime he compelled her into back against her, before eventually betraying her once again, turning her in for impersonating her sister, and framing Harrison despite all the convincing that it took to get him on board. So why did Maddie trust Joe when she was suspicious of him from the start? Why did Joe frame Harrison and expose Maddie after she did everything he asked? And what does Joe's treatment of both Maddie and Reagan reveal about his marriage with Kate? Let's talk about it. While Maddie starts the season at arm's length from Kate, who was once her emotionally close confidant in childhood,
Maddie loved Kate once, bonded under the weight of their emotionally abusive father.
and clocking the growing hunger in Joe,
I think there are days you'd prefer to just be you. It's like there's this hunger in you, I sense, for more.
she's pulled into the fray when Joe accidentally abducts her, believing that he's targeting the more ruthless Regan. As Maddie wakes up to find herself caged, she calls out for her lover Harrison in her confusion, not knowing how she's ended up trapped because this is not the scene she had originally consented to. When she finds out that it's Joe who has trapped her in the cage, revealing a new side of himself she wasn't previously privy to, he tries to spin the story that he's just an overexcited creep who had a weird crush on her, and therefore got jealous when he saw her with another man, specifically highlighting that the other man is her sister's husband, in a coercive proposition for Maddie to pretend the caging never happened. But Maddie wasn't listening to his lies and quickly pieced together the truth that Joe was targeting Regan to kill her after she figured out that he killed Bob. Recognizing the real Joe,
You are not my boo-boo.
I am your boo-boo.
You are not.
I am.
You are a fucking sociopath.
like her sister once before her,
Saving me from a mugging doesn't mean you get in my life.
I am not trying to get in
I
your
know
life.
a grift when I see it. You are a hollow nobody with no life of his own.
and her twin shortly after.
You! I always knew you were fucking psycho!
Maddie believes she can handle herself in the situation, having dealt with a dangerous man kidnapping her for ransom as a teenager, only to realize Joe is a different kind of demented. Joe tries to pave a path forward, still pursuing Regan against Kate's pleas, and proceeding to abduct and cage her just like Maddie, psychotically prompting Maddie to poison her sister with an insulin shot to secure her own survival, under threat of offering the same deal to Regan when she wakes up, who Maddie knows won't hesitate to save herself at her own expense. While Joe wanted Kate's permission to kill Regan and hated her for refusing it, he absolutely would have turned around and used it against her had she agreed to it, like he tried to do after killing Clayton when he tells Kate,
You're still complicit. If I go down, so do you.
and just as he later blackmails Maddie into helping him rehab his image online, using the video footage of her killing Regan to pressure her into playing along. Joe forced Maddie to kill her sister and then play her part as he dictated, taking over her life to serve his sister swap scheme. That's psychotic and mind-breaking on its own, but made worse by Joe's complete disregard for the distress Maddie is suffering as she spirals into addiction. He abducted her mistakenly, imprisoned her in the cage, tortured her by withholding her medication, forced her to murder her twin sister, and mentally destroyed her as he made her wear her sister's skin and live her life, all to serve his cover story. And mind you, this was also Joe could kill Kate's sister like she explicitly told him not to do. And then, after Maddie has been through all of that trauma, she tries her best to play along while Joe ignores her desperate pleas for help as she's struggling with hallucinations and a pill addiction. He blackmailed her into helping him convince the world he isn't a monster, as she intimately knows him to be, by literally holding the thing he made her do against her. So she helps him score an interview, still seeing through his bullshit motives, but interestingly, Maddie is noticeably uncomfortable being back in the basement where she was held prisoner, and yet she still runs into the cage with a tissue when Joe derails the interview, breaking down in tears. It's a small gesture showing Maddie's true character rooted in her emotional nature, that she still has situational empathy for Joe, comforting him as a human in distress, setting aside her own. He has done nothing but wrong her and harm her and use her and abuse her, and she still pushes down her own emotions to prioritize his. Which makes it even crazier but writing character that Joe then throws Maddie under the bus to lure Kate back to the States. Having Harrison and Maddie on board wasn't enough, as Joe plays them for fools when he frames Harrison for the murder he made Maddie do, and exposes Maddie for pretending to be her sister, which was his idea. Then he points to all of this as proof to Bronte that the Lockwoods are crazy, and he was such a victim in his life of luxury as Kate's rich and privileged Prince Charming, but man, that's a whole other thing. Joe kidnapped Maddie, caged her, forced her to kill her sister and live her life, and then he blackmailed her into helping him and finally exposed her anyway as she was entirely disposable to him. That's crazy and a clear indication of what Joe would have done to Kate if she had continued to play along. Joe caged Kate in their marriage and targeted her in a vulnerable moment, believing her to be ruthless in a way that she's not. He tormented her through his continued attempts to corrupt her after she put her foot down, and if she had given the green light to kill Regan, he would have forced her further into that life, blackmailing her into helping him, or at least enabling him, before eventually turning on her anyway. Joe caging Maddie, the emotional twin, after mistaking her for Regan the Ruthless, relates to his attempt to cage Kate into channeling Tom's programming and ordering him to kill, only to face her emotional side standing in the way of his plan. He targeted her like he targeted Regan, only to find out that she was emotional like Maddie at her core. When Joe tries to convince Maddie that he has a crush on her, she knows he's lying and figures out exactly what's going on, an expedited version of Kate slowly uncovering evidence of Joe's affair and coming to understand his ulterior motives. Maddie believing she can handle Joe's imprisonment, comparing it to the ordeal of being kidnapped for ransom ahead of her 16th birthday, only to find that Joe is far more cruel and evil than the drug lord that she drove to suicide, is not unlike Kate initially believing she can outplay Joe before learning of the specific deadly danger to her as his wife. Joe persisted in targeting Regan after Kate repeatedly told him that they would not be killing her sister because Kate never had any real sway in the matter. He wanted her permission to validate his characterization of himself as a noble knight, but notably continued to do as he pleased, violating direct orders of his supposed queen. He saw Kate's complicity to cover his ass when things went south, holding against her all that she enabled him to do. As Kate calls out that he killed her sister, he deflects blame, remarking that technically Maddie did it, trying to make her responsible for what he made her do in extenuating circumstances. Joe forced Maddie to kill her sister like he was literally trying to make Kate do. He was demanding she consent to him killing Regan, which isn't how consent works, and as she repeatedly refused, outright asking,
"Can this not be a discussion?"
No. Because how many times do I have to tell you, no, I won't do things the way that you want to?
Joe went behind her back and forced a weakened, vulnerable, and manipulated Maddie into becoming a murderer for her own survival. Kate apologizes to Maddie for turning away from her years ago and not protecting her from Joe, almost as an apology to herself for compartmentalizing away the emotionality her father disapproved of in his quest to mold her into the prodigy. That's fucking psychotic, the way that he's like, oh, I want to hold up my daughter as like this perfect business girl, as he's the one pulling all the strings. Maddie's ending emphasizes that her final fate takes into consideration the circumstances she faced, forced by Joe to act in a way counter to her true character. This parallels Kate's own journey, being misled and manipulated by Joe before facing her own trial by fire and proving herself deserving of redemption, not blameless but changed and free from the suffocating influence of men like her father and Joe. While Joe caging Dane revealed what would happen to Bronte if she refused to further the plot through a favorable narrative, his caging of Maddie reveals not only how vile and violent he is, victimizing Maddie repeatedly and discarding her despite her continued cooperation, but also that no target is off limits. Maddie's connection to Kate as a symbol of her emotional side makes it clear that there is no line Joe wouldn't cross, period. No matter what Joe says, Kate isn't safe, she's next. And as Kate realizes this, concluding that the only way to stop Joe is to cage him, she's supported by her sister showing up and setting the bookstore on fire,
Burn in hell.
saying goodbye to Joe the liar. Regan remained as the last remnant in connection to Tom, acting in line with Joe's own insatiable hunger for control and power to illustrate his true path of domination. He targeted her but snatched Maddie by mistake and took a detour, destroying her entire life as a result of his own little mix-up. It's not the first time Joe's left devastation in his wake, upending the lives of unsuspecting women as he blows through town, but thankfully it will be his last. With Tom, Bob, Regan, and Joe out of the picture, Kate and Maddie are given the chance to reclaim their lives. No longer caged, they're free to live authentically as exactly who they are, hopefully rekindling their connection and rebuilding the sisterhood their father tore apart.